Hello and welcome to yet another brand new episode of Health360. Well, on the show today, our experts are answering all your queries on buzzing health topics online. Actor Paresh Rawal has said that drinking his own urine is the best thing that he did for his health. Well, is that the right thing to do? Also on the show, how can erectile dysfunction indicate that your vascular health is not in good shape, that your heart is not perfectly healthy? Does beer dissolve kidney stones? That and much more up ahead on the show. I'm Sneha Mordani and this is Health360. Well, the internet has always been buzzing with the most bizarre, some interesting, some unbelievable health talk. We picked the most talked about stories online and have gotten our top experts to give us their medical advice on what they thought about all the health chatter online. Let me begin by introducing all our guests on the show today. Dr. Mandeep Singh is a well-known oncologist. Dr. Ashwin Malia, senior consultant, urologist from Sir Gangaram Hospital. And Dr. V.S. Bedi, director of Department of Vascular and Endovascular Surgery, again from Delhi's Sir Gangaram Hospital. Thank you all for your time here. My first question too is Dr. Mandeep Singh, and this has got to do with the research that has been done around bowel cancer. That bowel cancer is increasing among young people. Cases have doubled in the last 20 years is what research says. Lifestyle and diet are the major factors, but a toxin from E. coli bacteria is being seen as a big reason behind this. Bowel cancer cases, doctor, have doubled in people under the age of 50, as we know. The increase in early onset of colorectal cancer is actually not just focused in India, but also a global phenomenon. I want to ask you, why do you think our cases of bowel cancer surging like that? What has our diet, our lifestyles got to do with it?
As you rightly said, now we have more patients getting bowel cancer. The reason for that is specifically that we are having not good diet. Now what happens is that our diet has more processed foods, less fiber. Secondly, our diet also has more toxins, more pesticides, more fertilizers. Also the wrapping in which our diet comes, that is the microplastics in the wrapping, also are one of the factors for causing increased bowel cancer. So basically more of processed, less fiber, more contaminants.
All right, the wrapping in which our food also comes, and I think many of us kind of overlook that problem, but that's a big concern. But who is most vulnerable to bowel cancer? Why are younger people becoming more vulnerable to it, sir?
Yes, it's rightly said that more of the younger population are getting bowel cancer, because those are the ones who are having high quantity of processed food. Those are the ones who have less fiber in their diet. They even have more history or reason of substance abuse like alcohol, smoking. Their beverages are also not good. They are very high sugar content. Secondly, there is a very high incidence of stress. So overall, it's the cancer which is getting younger. And it's just not limited to bowel. We are now seeing that majority of our cancers, even breast cancer, uterine cancer, are getting younger.
The new study focuses on the DNA damaging toxin produced by certain strains of E. coli that is harming us, and that is being seen as a culprit behind early onset of cancer. What do you have to say about that?
We have commensal symbiotic bacteria. That is, there is a harmonious relationship between the bacteria in our gut and the human body. So what happens is that when we start consuming the wrong diet, that is more processed food, less fiber, more of a content which doesn't have lactobacillus into it, so our gut bacteria becomes the bad bacteria. So this bad bacteria, then specifically when we have researches which say that there is a certain strain of E. coli which releases a toxin called as colibactam, which causes the DNA damage. So basically the bad microbacteria releasing certain toxins which damages the gut mucosa, and that leads to cancerous changes and ultimately development of cancer.
Also I want to talk to you, Dr. Mandeep, about, a recent research that talks about repeated CT scans, and we all know how frequently we all do it essentially. It increases cancer risk. Now, the fact is that computed tomography or CT scans are widely used in modern medicine, we know, for accurate diagnosis of a host of diseases. All of us have done it at some point in time. But the recent study conducted in the US in 2023 and published already in the prestigious JAMA Internal Medicine says CT scans could cause over 1 lakh extra cancer cases. It's a big concern. Talking about how people who expose themselves to radiation of CT scans is linked to, in fact, or this is now causing more cancer cases in people. What's your take?
So basically, there is a recent study by NIH in which they have said that there's a 5% of the total cancer is due to the previous imaging which has occurred in our lifetime, and that too is majority CT scan. So CT scan, X-rays is associated with radiation exposure. So that is why they are the main culprit. So what happens is that obviously when we are looking at CT scan, there are certain guidelines, there are certain limits that the radiation exposure is in limits. But yes, there is certain amount of radiation exposure, and whenever there is a radiation exposure, what does radiation do? Radiation causes the damage in the DNA, and that DNA leads to mutation. Majority of times our body is able to repair these small mutations, but in certain situations or when the exposure becomes more, that is when they start leading to causes diseases like cancer.
Essentially, what should be done is what we've told our viewers is that we have to keep in mind these precautions whenever we're advised CT scan can't be done indiscriminately. You know, keeping our records of our x-rays in previous scans do give an accurate picture. Ask your doctor whether the CT scan is absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary. Also, other options like MRIs where radiation is not used is something that can be looked at. But Dr. Mandeep, it's accounting for 5% increase in cancer cases globally, and this has been found. This is a big concern given the frequency with which all of us are just going in for CT scans,
So 5% is the figure which has come out in the recent research studies,
Yes,
which suggests that out of the overall cancers, 5% are cancers which are caused by the imaging exposure which has happened in our lifetimes.
Right.
So that is when we get, so majority of it is abdominopelvic because the imaging, that is CT scan, happens due to abdomen or due to some gynecological or pelvic conditions. So that is why there is a high chance of getting a bowel or a gut cancers when we are looking at CT scan. So what does actually CT scan does is CT scan is associated with radiation. So whenever there is a radiation exposure, there is a damage or to our DNA, and that leads to mutations. Majority of times our DNA repair mechanisms are adequate and they are able to clear those mutations. But in certain situations like those patients who are inherently prone, that is their DNA repair mechanism is weak, they are more prone to getting cancers. And obviously when there is a culmination of everything like CT scan, poor diet, stress, substance abuse, then the chances of cancer becomes much higher.
All right, I'm going to thank you, Dr. Mandeep, joining in and sharing your views with us. Now, to tell our viewers, the other thing that caught our attention online this week had got to do with something that famous actor Paresh Rawal said. Well, he spoke about the fact that he was drinking his urine at least for some period of time. He said 15 days in a row, which he said helped him recover from his knee injury. Well, the actor from 90s, popular actor Anu Agarwal, also actually backed this claim later on, saying that her urine, she considers it as Amrit. So what really is the ultimate truth behind urine therapy? Our urologist on the broadcast is answering that question. Dr. Ashwin Malia is with us. Thank you so much for your time. Is urine Amrit? That is what Anu Agarwal says. Paresh Rawal also says that's the best thing that they did for their health. What do you have to say, sir?
Yeah, drinking one's own urine has been described in ancient yogic practices. This practice is called Amroli, and it is described in Hatha Yoga. But for there is no scientific evidence to prove that drinking one's own urine will be beneficial for health, whether in terms of recovery from any injuries or whether in terms of any diseases. So people have practiced this in the past as well. Even our ex-Prime Minister Morarji Desai ji, he also used to practice this. But in modern scientific, literature, we don't have any evidence to prove that this is a beneficial practice.
All right, there is no evidence. So the big question mark is on efficacy right here. Whether is there science backing this or not? My concern has got to do with the bacterial contamination and risks associated, doctor, with urine consumption. How big a risk is that?
So bacterial contamination can definitely be there, especially people who are diabetics and people who have some urinary issues like prostate issues and all that. Urinary infection is fairly common. So when urine
Yes.
is formed in the kidneys, it is sterile. But when it comes down the ureters and comes to the bladder and comes out through the urethra, so infection may be there. So drinking one's own urine may expose a person to harmful bacteria. So the stomach's defenses will help in fighting that infection, but many times it may not. So, even the issue of bacterial contamination is definitely there.
The risk of bacterial contamination is a very real threat. What about urine consumption as a survival tactic? We've seen a lot of people do it and talk about it, how this should be done. It's been, spoken about in popular culture as well. We've seen it happen in movies, in reality shows that people drink their urine to survive. It's a survival tactic. What do you have to say?
In desperate situations, like, people have been kidnapped, people have, in hijackings, people have been in terror attacks. This has happened in the past where people who were, held captive, they did not have access to drinking water. So they have survived on this. So this is a survival tactic. It is out of desperation. This is not the person would not have, enjoyed drinking his own urine, but it was the thirst factor that drove him to do that. So if you have access to clean drinking water, there's nothing like it.
All right, if you have access to drinking water, certainly you shouldn't be drinking your urine. So moving away from urine, let's talk a little about beer now. We're talking about beer because very recently in a WhatsApp conversation, actually, and this is a real story, somebody had a query about kidney stones and whether beer is going to help that person get rid of kidney stones. I did read up on it and I saw that a lot of people actually seem to believe that. This is a discussion online about the role of beer flushing out kidney stones. How truthful is that? What's the truth, doctor?
So it is a very popular thing. Being a urologist, many people ask me, I have some
Okay.
stones, can I drink beer to flush them out? See, do this at your own risk because beer is a diuretic. That means it increases the urine output. So
Yes.
small stones, if you're lucky, they may flush out. But in the longer run, we have seen people with larger stones. If you suddenly, if they drink a couple of beers, there is a sudden gush of urine from the kidney, but there is an obstruction at the level of the ureter. This can lead to harmful consequences, like we have even seen rupture of the kidney, and then which had to be repaired later. So, or a stent had to be inserted. So I would not recommend drinking beer for flushing out the stones. Drinking water is still okay, and even for infection, it will just increase the urine output. Doesn't mean it will flush out the infection. The bacteria are there;
Yes.
it will come back again. So for both practices, I would not recommend this.
Yes, that's what I wanted was coming at. A lot of people said even urinary tract infection. So drink lots of beer. It's going to increase your urine output and that way all the infection also gets washed out. That's also a myth.
Beer can help in flushing out the stones if they are small and they may just gush out. But over the long run, alcohol causes dehydration also,
Of
leading to
course,
formation of
yes.
stones. Alcohol increases the uric acid levels in the body, which also can lead to formation of stones. So, drinking beer for stone disease is not a good idea.
Right, so if a person has kidney stones, what would be the best thing to do? Certainly, I understand not drinking beer.
So the best thing you can do if you've been diagnosed with kidney stones is to meet a urologist. So the urologist would
Right.
be able to tell you the exact way to go ahead when you are diagnosed with a stone because he has the technology at his disposal. There are a lot of good medications nowadays that can help in stone expulsion. In addition, there is a lot of treatments. We have ureteroscopy, PCNL, mini PCNL, lasers to take care of stones, even whether they are small or whether they are large.
Okay.
So, meeting a urologist is a critical thing to do. For prevention of recurrence, for example, for prevention of stones, one thing that has to be remembered is good amount of water intake. So around 2.5 to 3 liters of water intake is necessary in recurrent stone formers. Avoid drinking too much of alcohol. Avoid too much of caffeine and carbonated drinks like cold drinks that which soda containing drinks. In addition, eating too much of animal protein can also lead to formation of stones. Eating green
Okay.
leafy vegetables daily on a daily basis can lead to increased oxalate content, which can lead to formation of stones.
All
So these
right.
are
So
the broad
clearly, yeah,
guidelines, but
that's right.
meet your urologist. He will definitely guide you in person.
All right, to tell our viewers, all of those who are cheering all this while, beer clearly isn't the solution. Dr. Mali, I'm going to thank you for joining in. Now, the other thing that caught our attention this time around was how an erectile dysfunction in men will be an indicator of poor heart health. Now, you heard that right. If a man has erectile dysfunction, there is going to be a connection with poor heart health. The thing is, the blood flow is connected with heart health, and that is deeply connected with your bed performance. Studies show this, and this is a reason why erectile dysfunction should be seen as a warning sign of cardiovascular disease. The body often sends these warning signals before a major health crisis, and one of these signs in men is erectile dysfunction. It isn't just about performance or aging. It can actually be seen as an early indicator of heart disease. Well, to talk about that and much more, I have with me heart specialist, vascular heart specialist, Dr. V.S. Bedi. Thank you so much for your time. This study says if you're having an erectile dysfunction or a problem with erection in men, it could be the first indicator of poor heart health. Tell us a little more about this study.
Yeah, so basically what happens is that the vessels in the penile area which are there are basically very small vessels as compared to the coronary arteries and rest of the
Right.
blood vessels. When you have these kind of blockages in the arteries to the penis area, 25% of these patients are likely to have a coronary artery disease also, which means that basically many of these patients who have erectile dysfunction because of the small arteries out there, some calcium deposits happen. And this happens even into the penile arteries also, as well as the bigger arteries which are supplying blood to that particular area, like the internal iliac arteries. And because of these blockages and all over a period of time, these patients do develop erectile dysfunction. And at the same time, this is what we call a mirror to the rest of the body and especially to the heart. So whenever these patients present with these kind of calcifications, we always have to evaluate them for any heart condition also, because like I said, that 25% will have a heart condition. So
Okay.
how critical it is, that probably we will come to know after the evaluation out there. So especially in patients who are around the age bracket of about 50 years or so, and secondly, diabetics and smokers. I think these are the two biggest causes which are there, which produce these kind of calcifications in the artery. That means the arteries become stiff and they do not really become very compliant and all, and these kind of problems happen in these kind of patients.
So clearly what we understand is that ED or erectile dysfunction is a good indicator of poor heart health.
That's right. So that is why, like I said, that basically when these kind of patients have calcifications in the small vessels out there, the chances of calcification in the heart vessels is very high.
That's right.
And especially if you have a combination of diabetes and smoking, and even some patients have kidney disease also for that matter. These kind of patients really are going to have a very, very high chance. In fact, when you say 25% here, the chances of having a heart condition
Okay.
could almost go up to 75%. And many of these patients basically suddenly present with a heart attack also. It's very common
That's
to
right.
have them coming with chest pain and sudden discomfort and all that. So erectile dysfunction is basically a precursor, I would say, to a large extent. It's an indicator also, it's a precursor also for a future coronary artery disease.
Okay. All right. That's interesting and important to remember. Now, the other thing, Dr. Bedi, which kind of caught our attention this time, and this has been in news for a while now, but this has got to do with another popular sugar substitute. Remember that last time around, in fact, sometime in the month of May last year, the World Health Organization had spoken about non-sugar sweeteners, saying that it should not be used to control body weight or reduce the risk of non-communicable diseases. The problem is that they're not safer than sugar, is what was said. The recommendations actually are based on the findings of systematic review of the available evidence that suggested that additives of this kind basically sugar-free, etc., all of these things, aspartame, do not confer any long-term benefit in reducing body fat in adults or in children. Results of the review suggest there could be potential undesirable effects from long-term use of NSS, such as increase in type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular diseases and mortality as well. A popular sugar substitute, a recent research that has been done, says that there is a connection between this sugar substitute and in blood and an increased risk of vascular health problems. This sugar substitute is called erythritol. It's a popular sweetener. So, the connection is between this sugar substitute and poor heart health and also the risk of stroke. New cellular research adds supporting evidence that the amount of erythritol in just one serving of a beverage actually could harm your brain health and your blood vessel health. It's extremely worrying, Dr. Bedi. Essential sugar substitutes could be harming blood vessel health. I just want to ask you, this is a popular, commonly used sugar substitute, often marketed as healthy. It may impair blood vessel health by disrupting the brain's ability, the study says, to produce a critical compound according to the new research. Just tell us what this study really is about and how does one read into it?
Yeah, so basically there's a study which came out in 2023 also, which indicated that when you use these compounds, especially a prolonged usage and regular usage of erythritol, which is very common, we always prefer to say, okay, we want a Coke Zero, we want this, we want that and all that. So sugar-free substitutes and all that. Synthetic sugar-free substitutes are basically known to have side effects. There's a very high chance that they will have gastrointestinal upsets and all.
Okay.
So that is why it is a potentially toxic, and especially it can even produce something like tremors and all in certain subset of patients. So prolonged usage of these kind of compounds and substitutes, basically synthetic substitutes, are probably not the way to go forward for these patients.
So essentially, erythritol is a sugar alcohol widely used as a non-caloric sweetener in sugar-free products. And we know these sugar-free products are seen in, keto-friendly snack bars, energy drinks, sugar-free chewing gum as well. It has been approved, doctor, as a food additive in the United States since the year 2001. Is marketed, like I said, as a healthy alternative to sugar. Tell us a little about how of late these sugar additives and why have been in news for all the wrong reasons. Erythritol is not the only one. What would you advise to people who are taking these sugar additives?
So I think it is probably the time to switch over from erythritol to the natural sweeteners which are there, because the risk of having these kind of fruit energy bars and all which are with erythritol, the chances of having a cardiac event are very high. They can even cause potential complications. Like I said, they can have tremors, they can have some allergic reactions in certain subset of patients and all that. So the chances of complications, despite the fact that these have been approved by FDA and all, yet at the same time, I think I would take these things compounds with a heavy pinch of salt out here, a heavy handful of salt out here, because what is really truly marketed as safe is not really safe. And probably it is the time to switch over to natural sweeteners like stevia and all, which are probably much better because they are extracted from a plant leaf. So artificial sweeteners are probably not the way to go forward, because long-term complications are much more with them. And despite the fact that you feel that, okay, you are taking a healthy diet and all that, or healthy, sweeteners and all, they are not really healthy. So I would recommend that if at all somebody takes it, it should be taken once in a while, not on a regular basis, and preferably switch over to the natural sweeteners out here rather than using these artificial sweeteners.
All right. Dr. Bedi, appreciate you joining us here on the show and sharing with us what you think should be the way forward in people who are taking these sugar substitutes. You say go natural, that's the best thing to do. A lot of doctors actually say that stop taking these sugar additives collectively. Why take the risk when research, like we've seen, is just evolving in many such cases? Thanking you for your time here. Well, that brings us to the end of this edition. We hope you enjoyed watching the show as much as we did putting it together for you. All of these reports can be found on India Today's website, that's indiatoday.in. You can download the app, our social media handles, YouTube, Twitter, which is X, Facebook and Instagram. All of these carry these reports and videos. Our hashtag is Health360, Health360 Plus. Do not forget to like, subscribe and share. Thank you so much for watching. Take very good care of yourself. Bye for now.